Good afternoon and welcome to today's episode of LIBN Now. Today's episode focuses on the triple threat many face when working on planning for their future. Joining us to discuss what those threats are and how to leverage elder law solutions to solve them is Jennifer Cona, founder and managing partner at Cona Elder Law, and Melissa Negrin-Weiner, partner at Cona Elder Law. As always, Zoom attendees may submit their questions at any time by clicking Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Now, to kick off today's program and to introduce today's guests, please welcome LIBN Associate Publisher, Ali Jabbour, and LIBN Editor and Associate Publisher, Joe Dowd.
Thanks, Jenna. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Ali.
You ready to get this conversation going? Because you know this is going to be very exciting.
It certainly is. It's a very important topic that it impacts lots of people on Long Island, and we should get right at it. Ali?
Let's go for it. So I'd like to welcome Jennifer Cona. As Jenna had announced, she is the managing partner at Cona Elder Law, and Melissa Negrin-Weiner, who is a partner at Cona Elder Law. Ladies, hello.
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 Good to see you, Joe. Good to see you, Ali. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for being here. And I think that, like I had said to Joe, this is a very exciting conversation because even as I was just going through some of my notes and what we were covering before, it really raises so many questions for me personally. So I can only imagine if they raise questions for me, that the community at large, must be facing, similar queries as to how do we affect what's going to happen and what are we experiencing as our parents and families are aging. So it's a very interesting topic.
That's what makes this area of law so interesting for us, because it is so personal. It's what we do for a living, but it affects us personally, our families, our parents, our children, and the stories that we see are relevant to all of us at our various stages in life, and we can all really relate to it. And if you're not going through it right now, you will be at some point. So the information that we're sharing with our clients all the time is stuff that, we can really relate to, and we really want to get information out to people because it's going to hit you at some point if it hasn't already. So that's why it's so important to share this information.
I remember listening to Melissa one time saying it's never too early.
Right.
Never. Right. She's like, she's talking to people in their 20s, like, you're going to get here. Everybody's going to get to this finish line, unfortunately. Right. So just very curious to hear how this flows.
There's also always so much along the way, there's different things that you have to plan for and different things you have to think about as you go through different stages of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's a good way to kick off. Let me ask you this. Both Jennifer and Melissa, you've been doing this for a long time, and families can be complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't see things coming in your life that at 40, when you're 40 and your siblings are, 30 something, like, you don't see stuff coming. Can I ask you, what happens? Why do you see the dynamics change in families? What's the cause that you have seen in general, and how do you as lawyers address this on behalf of your clients? Jennifer?
Oh, that is such a loaded question, but the cause really is old resentments, emotions, and money. And that's really kind of the triple threat. It is very complicated because, from our perspective as attorneys, we can see it logically, right? Because we don't have that emotional overlay. So it seems very clear to us what the situation is, what the solution may be. You throw those emotions in, and you throw in those resentments, those childhood resentments. We've actually had a client say in the conference room, Johnny got that fire truck that I really wanted when we were 5 and 7 years old, literally. And those issues that were, to the family, the other siblings' perspective was long gone and buried, comes out now when mom has passed away, because they were deep-seated resentments that somebody was the favored child or the favorite one or whatever it was, and now it's come up because they feel that they were treated differently the entire time. Maybe now somebody is getting more money or got a specific bequest under the will of property or jewelry or whatever the case may be. And all those old resentments come flooding right back. And so that dynamic plays out again, and the logic is out the window. And we've also had many clients say, I don't care if my sibling ever sees a dime and you, the attorneys, get all the money. I want to make sure they get nothing. Okay, so there's no logic in that, obviously, none whatsoever. So our job, to your second question, is how do we get there with clients? How do we make them see you're hurting everybody? You know, this isn't healthy. This isn't good for anybody. We have to instill that logic and make people understand that fighting to the death is not healthy. We can't repair every family. We would love to. Melissa's, you know, that's her specialty. She likes mediation. She really wants to get every family back on the same page. And I would too. Sometimes it's not realistic. Sometimes, you know, as much as we want to be, that's the counselors at law part, you know, where we really do want to do that. We want to be more social workers. It's not going to work in every case, but we want to at least get them to the place where we can say, you don't have to drag every family member through the mud. Find a reasonable solution and let's get this done. And we've been very successful in that. Sometimes it's much more challenging than other times, but at the end of the day, that isn't everybody's best interest. Maybe it won't be a kumbaya situation, but at least have some logic prevail at the end of the day.
And I
Melissa,
can't even imagine
Melissa,
being in a room, and don't we go by the will? I mean, doesn't the will have a place at the table?
Sure, a will has a place, but anybody can challenge a will. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Anyone can challenge a will. Assets disappear before a will ever gets to probate. Plenty of people pass away without a will, and then the laws of intestacy guide who is going to get what. So there's all kinds of variations on the theme, especially when, let's say, someone was power of attorney and they depleted assets ahead of time before the person passed away. So there's a whole variety of the way things can play out. And then, of course, there's all different legal answers, legal techniques to how we get back to square one, get money returned so that what mom or dad's wishes were can be followed.
Melissa, Jennifer referred to your specialty.
Mhm.
I sum it up this way. How do you deal with the sibling who didn't get the fire truck?
Well, this comes up in estate matters when someone passes away. It also comes up a lot in guardianship when mom or dad is still alive, but the family is fighting over the care of the parent or the finances. So we deal with this sometimes when the parent has passed, and also while the parent is alive. And it's really about mediation, talking, like Jen said, being a counselor, and kind of trying to have them really understand that at the end of the day, everybody is worried about mom. Mom is the focus, right? It's mom, what's in mom's best interest? How do we get back to making sure that she is the primary focus of the situation, her care, her well-being? That is what I see as my job, especially if I'm doing mediation type of work, is to get the family to kind of realize that they're all in that room because they all want to make sure that mom gets the best care. And, you know, we just have to get there and kind of weed through all of the excess stuff to bring them back to that. I always tell people, you don't have to talk to each other ever again after this is over if you don't want to. But let's look at what we're here for, because if we're all in the room, we're all here because we care about mom.
Okay. Let's talk about overreach by family members or strangers, financial abuse, exploitation. These are some of the things that you guys have to confront all the time. You may be in a situation where an older adult or a disabled individual is dependent on a caretaker that could be a child or a friend, even a neighbor, right? And all of a sudden, that person or those people become involved in bad decisions. I'd like to talk about how you, as experts in this field, move to have legal solutions to address stuff like that. Jennifer?
Sure. So I think what people should know about this is that it's usually family members that are doing the overreaching. So I think the general impression out there is that it is a stranger. You know, someone swoops in, it's a scam, it's this and that. Typically, that's not the case. It's usually a child who might force mom to sign a power of attorney. And next thing you know, all of mom's assets are gone to that child. That's a typical kind of scenario. And what happens is mom feels she has no choice because that child is paying the bills, bringing mom food, taking care of mom in every way, you know, hands-on care or whatever it may be. So mom essentially is in a powerless position where she's completely dependent on that child. And there can even be situations where mom doesn't have a phone. Mom has no access to call any other kids. We've seen that 1,000 times, right, Melissa? Where mom is completely cut off from getting any other help because the child who's doing all the overreaching has made sure mom's completely isolated. Listening in on phone calls if mom does have a phone, things like that. It's a very, very scary situation and it happens all the time. So mom is completely powerless to do anything because mom understands that no one will take care of her if she bucks the system. No one will pay her bills. No one will bring her food. She can't do anything about it. It's kind of like that Stockholm syndrome situation. So it's very, very scary. And what we can do legally is bring a guardianship proceeding. But sometimes even when we do, mom will say, no, I love Johnny. I need Johnny to take care of me. And Melissa can speak more to this, but those are very, very difficult cases. As to the power of attorney and healthcare proxy and things that mom maybe was forced to sign, if, you know, a lot of people will say to us, well, why don't we just have mom revoke it? Let's get involved. We'll have mom revoke those, sign new ones to another child. That's all well and good. But then as soon as the overreaching child comes back into the scene, those get revoked again and she signs one back over to that same overreaching child. So that's where the legal solution is a guardianship proceeding. You want to talk more about that, Melissa?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we've absolutely seen that where it's just kind of like lawyer hopping and, you know, the kids are going back and forth and mom is just signing, you know, because the kid that she's with at the moment, she doesn't want to upset them. COVID has made this so difficult too, because it has given us, you know, it's been really difficult for us to meet alone with mom, right? Because that's something that we always do. If they come into the office with mom, we want to meet alone with her. But with the technology and having to do things virtually, usually one of the kids needs to be there to help with the Zoom. And so you're having, you know, you have a hard time really getting the answers from the parent of what's going on. But as far as Jen's saying, we've had this situation, and I have one right now where the child has actually moved in with the parent, the child that's overreaching. So as far as isolation, she's not letting anybody else in the house. She doesn't go to work. She's there all day. She's completely made it impossible for mom to speak to anyone else. So by petitioning for guardianship and having the court appoint a third party person who is called a court evaluator, but not involved really in the, you know, doesn't know anybody in the matter, to speak to all the family members, to get the lay of the land, to find out what's really going on. They're like the eyes and ears of the court. And that is probably the thing that helps us the most in these types of cases, because they're able to kind of really see who the players are individually. Again, with COVID making it difficult, but going to court and having a guardian appointed, having those powers of attorney, healthcare proxies revoked, and having a person put in place, whether it's another family member or sometimes the court will appoint an independent guardian, a third party, because the family just cannot get on the same page no matter what. So just to make it better for mom or dad, to appoint an independent guardian to be able to make all of those crucial decisions, make sure that there's visitation allowed, make sure that all of the family members are getting their time with mom. It's really unbelievable when you think about it. When you look at a family kind of falling apart like that.
When you see the overreaching child, that's really, hold on, that's really disturbing, some of what you just talked about. In the case of an overreaching child, who would bring the suit to say, mom is being abused by my brother, and I don't have access to her, and she lives in New Jersey and I live in New York, and there are state lines involved? What happens? Who brings the suit? How does it start? How do you come to see the client, and who is the client?
Well, the action typically has to be brought in the state where the person, the alleged incapacitated person, so mom or dad, wherever they're residing at the time. So that's the state that you have to bring the case in. But usually the petitioner or the person who brings the guardianship is the other child, or maybe there's multiple children. Maybe there are multiple petitioners who are kind of all on the same side. And they'll be the ones to actually bring the action to the court.
Okay, and can the actual the guardian, that the overreaching child who lives with the parent or the person in need, okay, whoever that is, can they deny access to siblings because they own the house or they have possession of mom or dad? Can they do that?
Well, if it's their home that they own, they can certainly not allow someone into their own home.
Okay.
If they
It
so
just seems
choose.
so crazy.
You see my point, though. Like, it's mom.
Yeah.
The kids want to see mom, and they agreed to take care of her. And in my assumption would be, if someone is taking care of them, well, they have to gain access to friends and family. And the law is not clear on this, is it?
Well, really, that's where the guardianship comes in. And that's where you get a visitation schedule, visitation rights. That's your solution.
Okay.
Because it is typically, it would be in mom's best interest for her to see all of her children. And the court will say so, and the court will make sure that that's happening. And there's a report filed every year to make sure that the other children are having access to mom.
Where does the power of attorney fit in here? So if I'm the daughter that has the power of attorney, how does that work with my siblings? If I decide to, live with my mother, how does that work? Do I have control over visitation because I have power of attorney?
No.
Okay.
No, so the power of attorney just gives someone authority over finances. So, banking.
Just finances,
Yeah.
100%. Okay.
Banking, real estate transactions, gifting, let's say in the Medicaid context, asset transfers, things like that. That's all the power of attorney will do.
Okay.
Visitation, place of abode, meaning if mom needed to move to assisted living or nursing home, things like that, that authority is only granted in a guardianship proceeding.
Okay. All right. Let's come to the second part of this, the state litigation. So the family is fighting that there's some dysfunction. There have been longstanding resentments, and some of this plays out with money. A caretaker child starts to feel entitled to the assets more than the others. And in these cases, which can become, I guess, extreme, where the funds are, withheld or hidden or spent, what are the legal solutions? And what should our readers and audience know about those solutions and what are available to them?
So we see this all the time, where it's that entitlement issue. I've been taking care, let's call it dad this time. I've been taking care of dad for all of these years, and I should get the house, or I should be compensated for all the services I've been providing for all of these years. That's kind of a typical feeling that children will have. right or wrong, but the will may not say that. So the other children feel, well, dad never said that. So on what grounds did you transfer assets to yourself? Maybe by power of attorney, or maybe by taking dad to a lawyer who signed things over. And now that dad has passed away, the children are shocked to learn that maybe there is no estate. There's nothing to probate because the assets are all gone. Or, there's very little in the estate. Or a will was signed saying, I'm giving the house and I'm giving yada yada to, Jimmy, who did, all this caregiving for me. The solutions are, depending on how that has played out, solutions would be to ask for an accounting, because and it could be an accounting of the estate or of the use of the power of attorney, depending how it played out, because you want to see, well, where did the money go and when? So if that person used the power of attorney to move money around, you want to see, where is it? And then we would do a discovery and turnover proceeding to potentially get that money back into the estate. And then it could follow the terms of the will if the will said, equally to my children. So there's a bunch of different ways that can play out. And it is essentially, you could be doing a will contest, overturning the will if it's the scenario where that caretaker person brought dad to sign a will that maybe he didn't know he was treating the kids unequally. That happens all the time. Or maybe he didn't know he signed the power of attorney and that kid moved the money around and kind of cleaned out the estate. So there's so many different ways that it does play out. But I think what people really need to know is that there's solutions. You're never sort of stuck with, oh my gosh, I can't believe my brother did this to me. And, this is terrible and there's no solution. There's always a solution. And it just depends on what happened and when, what methodology was used. There is a specific solution to potentially get the money returned to the estate and have it go the way dad wanted. At the end of the day, what dad wanted is what needs to prevail under the law. Because like Melissa was talking about in the guardianship context, what the parent wanted is critical. That's what this is all about. And to your point earlier, Joe, who's the client? Our job is to serve the needs of that older person, that parent, the testator of the will, or in the case of a guardianship, the elderly person who we're all concerned about. That's who we're all here to serve in this area of law. And that's, think about it. If it was you or your parent, I want my wishes carried out. I don't want anybody messing with my testamentary plan because they feel entitled to this and that. And I would want a lawyer making sure that my wishes are followed because I spent the time to put my affairs in order. And that needs to be what happens at the end of the day, regardless of how kids feel about what they did or didn't do. My wishes need to be followed. And that's our job.
Wow. And what point should a child or, somebody in this situation, when they start to realize there's an issue or a problem, this doesn't happen overnight. A lot of times it takes a long time to develop. When should the client get involved and say, I think I need help with mom? What, in your experience, is the breaking point where you say, I got to get a lawyer who knows their stuff? Melissa?
I think as soon as they notice that something funny is going on, because unfortunately, if especially from a financial perspective, if assets are moved, transferred, as you said earlier, Joe, even spent, it makes it that much more difficult to put everything back in the right order and, pull those assets back or anything like that, because they just may not be there anymore. And that's certainly something that we see all the time. So I would say that, immediately, if there are financials that, issues showing that finances have been moved, if there's questions about, the way that mom is being cared for, the way she's being treated, perhaps, someone goes to the house and sees that the medication bottles are totally full, medication isn't being given, any inkling that something is not going the way it should be going, somebody should say something.
Okay. Allie, there were we have more questions.
There's so many questions flying in.
And we are not going to be able to answer them all in the few minutes that's remaining. This has been such a vibrant conversation.
Yes.
We're going to have to follow with a story in Long Island Business News as well. It's just this, it's too valuable a discussion. So what I'm going to ask in the last few minutes that we have left of both my guests today, could you please summarize for me what do people in this situation need to know? Where do they go, and when do they do it? What are the remedies that are available to them? Melissa, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Well, first, I think the most important thing for people to know and realize is that planning is key. Planning ahead is key, making sure that the appropriate documents are in place, that people know your wishes, having that conversation, that's key. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen quite as often as it should. So, people again need to realize that if they see something that's not right, if they have something's questionable, say something, come talk to us. Sometimes there's ways to just deal with it, just getting the family all in one room. And sometimes you have to, take the legal steps to deal with it. Jen?
I would want people to know that it's never too early to plan and it's never too late to plan. And also that you're never too rich and you're never too poor. Because sometimes people think, oh, I don't have enough money to need to be concerned about planning. Well, everyone at least needs a power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and living will, and a last will and testament. And then other people need estate tax planning. And it's never too early to plan, because when you have children, you want to name guardian of minor children. And if you're retiring, or even we have people come to us in their 90s, who need to update their will. So it's never too early and never too late. So I think that's a good takeaway for people.
Okay. My mom said that the first sibling rivalry was Cain and Abel. And I wonder if that still carries through today when we hear this go.
Yep.
That fire truck that I got was so damaging for so many others. I think there's a lesson in that that's bigger. I think that's really was a valuable thing today. I want to thank my guests for joining us on this vital thing. I'd like you back soon so that we can go into this even in more depth. Okay. Jennifer Cona, the founder and managing partner of Cona Elder Law, and Melissa Negrin-Wiener, a partner with Cona Elder Law. Thank you very much for being part of LIBN Now today.
Thank you so much, Joe and Allie. Great
Thank
to
you.
be
You're welcome. And I just want to say to our audience, the folks that wrote in questions and answers, we'll do our best to respond to those, either in print or online. We'll make sure we'll get some of those answers out to you folks.
Yeah, we'll write a story to follow up on this. We'll look for an upcoming edition of LIBN Now. For Ali Jabbour and everyone here at Long Island Business News, stay safe and good luck.
And plan. Take care.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of LIBN Now. Don't forget to join us next week, same time, same place, where we'll be talking about the vaccination rollout across Long Island. To submit your questions ahead of time and to view past episodes, go to libn.com/libnow. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.